This podcast is for singers who have music in their soul and want to be in the spotlight. We are INVICTA Vox Radio.
Hey everybody, and welcome again to another episode of INVICTA Vox Radio. We are your hosts, Mike and
Angie Lee.
And today we're going to be continuing a conversation that we started
two episodes ago.
Episode 2. So in episode 2, Angie recapped with 5 beautiful things. The first one being is know where you're at right now.
Be real with where you're at. And
we talked about that in the last episode. And then, so be real with where you're at. Know what you want.
Number 2 is know where you want to go. Man,
right.
We're having a hard time talking today.
Yeah. So it's starting out a little rough, but it's okay. Step 3 is declare. And we're not really going to talk a whole lot about this because it's really simple. To declare, just go out and tell somebody else what you're trying to do.
Well, there's a lot of ways to declare. Let's touch on that for 2 seconds, right?
Okay.
Telling someone, okay, verbalizing to someone else. I actually think writing it down is also a declaration. So if you have a morning journal that you do or a nightly journal or whatever that may be, some of us have really cool planners that we declare in every single day. But if you don't have someone to talk to about what you want to do with your life and where you want to go and the dream, then declare it on paper.
For sure.
I think that's a really solid way. Because once you declare it, it's coming true. You have to do it.
Right. Well, and I think that's why in the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, he talks about that you should be writing these things down daily. In
Every
fact, he
single
says
day.
Twice a day. I
yeah,
believe
he
in
does.
That book, right?
He does. And I do a morning journal, and then I also do my morning planner every day and just look at how I'm going to lay things out. I do my gratitude. I talk about things I'm excited about. And then every single day I write down what my goals are. Or what my main goal or target is right now. And it's crazy how it puts it at the forefront of your mind if you do a daily declaration.
Sure.
And I know some people who will take a dry erase marker and write it on their mirror so they see it every morning. People who write it in their journal, do it in their planner. So writing it down is still the same as putting it out there verbally. You're putting it out to the universe and you're throwing your energy behind it every single day. And so a declaration, the reason declarations are so hard and so scary is because once you say it, there's no going back, right? You either have to give up on your dream and be okay with that, or you actually have to move. And so the declaration is what gives you the power to do what we're going to talk about today, which is taking the first step on the path.
Right.
Right.
So I think this episode is going to end up being kind of a twofer.
Yeah.
Where we're going to talk
declare and then move.
And
then the last step, which we're going to get to next time, is don't stop. Right. Once you start moving, you can't stop. But we'll get to that. So yeah, we're going to talk about declaring and moving.
Right. Because so continuing on with the thought of once you declare what it is, it keeps it at the forefront of your mind, right?
Yeah.
But then you can ask yourself daily, are the things I'm working on actually taking me toward what I want or away from what I want?
Yeah, it's that assessment, a daily assessment to check in and say, is this serving me or is it not? Absolutely. Right. And it's so essential that we're real with that on a daily basis because we had an artist who just like barely 2 seconds ago commented on how frustrated she is because she feels like she's just going in circles right now with her career. And I'm like, well, that's because you don't know what you want. You're not being real with where you're at. And you haven't taken the steps and course corrected to get where you want to go.
Right.
And so, of course, she's just running in circles because you have to have a destination, right? And so it's interesting because everybody has this problem at some point.
For sure. Absolutely. And again, it goes back to the whole game is about clarity, right? And that's why we talk so much about know where you're at, know where you want to go, because it's that clarity that'll actually help make things happen in the long run. But then, like you said, declare, and one, you declare it to other people, so that way, just like we talked about last time, they can hold you accountable, and they can help give you the feedback that you need along the way. And then 2, it keeps it in the forefront of your own mind so that way you can kind of check yourself on a daily basis.
Well, I mean, ask yourself this question. How many of you have been really excited about something and then declared it and then been like, oh man, I actually have to follow through with that declaration because people are going to know if I don't achieve it. And I think that's really like a big reason why people give up instead of declare. That the declare part is kind of like the pinnacle of it, right? That's where you decide if you're going to do it or not.
Right.
Because you can know what you want, but if you don't declare it, then it's never going to happen. Because at some point, you have to put it out there so that you can be held accountable by yourself and the people around you. You have to put that pressure on yourself. Because if you don't, you will never move. Because you don't have to. It's just a nice thought. It just stays in your mind.
Which I totally agree with, but I think the dangerous side behind declaration is if you are going to declare that you're going to do something, then you better damn well do it. Because
Absolutely.
Otherwise you start to lose credibility with yourself very quickly because it becomes a boy who cried wolf situation.
Well, yeah, you don't just lose the trust of the people around you, you lose the trust in yourself.
Yeah.
And that is the most important one to have is it's not just loving yourself, but it's trusting that you're going to do the stuff you say you're going to do.
And I've been in that situation before personally where I just felt like I was constantly telling people, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And then
they stopped believing it
and
too,
I never
right?
did it. So they stopped believing. But the worst part is I stopped believing myself. So I remember I got to the point one time where you're like, yeah, are you going to do it or not? And I don't even remember what the thing was. But I said, well, I can tell you that I am, but I actually don't believe that I'm going to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was such a huge thing. We were standing in our kitchen, and I remember the first time you said that, and I was like, whoa, that's such an interesting thought. And I wasn't super sad for you, but it was like, I need to look at myself and go, where in my life am I lying to myself about what I intend to do? Right? What I am willing to do, what I am going to put on the line. Because I think so many people sit and talk about what they want to do someday. So it's funny because you have the people who are afraid to declare it because then they know they have to do it. Or you have the people who say they're going to do it all the time and then they actually don't do anything. Right? And so there's our option A, option B situation right there. And like we've been both of those people, right?
For sure.
I mean, I'm 36 years old. I had a really active career in the music industry until I had our first baby when I was 30. And obviously having babies takes its toll. It takes its time. So we have our 2 kiddos now. And this year I've started declaring to people because my baby is now 3. My youngest is now 3. She's almost 4. I've started to declare to people that I'm going to start my music again, that I'm going to get back into it as an artist and I'm going to have an artistic journey and I'm going to do big stuff with it.
Right.
That's a huge declaration for me because I'm going to hold myself accountable to that. And I know that with the people around me, they're going to be expecting it now, right? I can't let them down. I can't let myself down. So I'm in the position now where I'm going to do it. I have to do it because if I don't, it'll break my heart. And for me, opening that door means there's no going back.
Right.
And so it's time to move. It's time to move. But I have been on the other side of it, like you said, where for years I was like, oh, someday I'm going to do this. Someday I'm going to do this. And nothing ever happened. And we got to the point even in our relationship where we're like, man, we are the biggest liars. We lie to ourselves because we actually don't move on the things we're going to say or the things we say we're going to do.
Right.
And so I think that's a big deal. Recognize if you are the person who is just afraid to declare because you're afraid to move, because you know you have to once you declare, or are you the person who declares all the time and you're just lying to yourself about it because you're not actually going to go anywhere?
And if you are that person, because again, I always point back to myself, right, and say I was that person. So how do you start to dig out of that pit? Where do you start at that point? And I would say you have to start extremely small at that point. Oh, yeah.
You have to commit to do something you know for certain you can achieve.
Right. And it's easy. Like it takes no thought, but you just tell yourself, hey, I'm going to do this. And I've heard other people talk about this. I think I heard Tom Bilyeu, who does impact theory, talk about this, where it's like, just tell yourself you're going to do one push-up a day.
Yeah.
And then get in that one push-up a day.
Build that trust with yourself.
Right. And then start to take incrementally larger steps over time, right? And eventually you can get to the point where if you say you're going to do something big, you believe in yourself to the point that you know you're going to put everything you have into it to achieve it. And it's just going to take time to get there, but you're going to do it.
Yeah, like a small example of that, of something I did at the beginning of last year. I was the person my entire life, I never make the bed. Like, I never make the bed. Like,
Right.
I never made the bed our entire marriage. You never make the bed either. But I'm usually the second person out of the bed, so it's my job to make the bed, right?
That is true.
Yes. So, because my kid's up at like 4:30 a.m. every morning because you're crazy. But you're also amazing. So,
You're crazy.
You're crazy. But I've always been this person who's never made the bed. That's just who I am. And for my whole life. And my mom was always like, hey, make your bed. You know, I never did. And I decided at the beginning of last year that I wanted my bed to be made all the time. I just wanted that to happen. And I committed for the first quarter of 2019 to make my bed every morning. And I didn't commit to do any other thing that was in my routine new except for that, because I was like, I just got to put all my focus into this to make sure I do it. And I started it at the beginning of the year of 2019. Guess what, guys? Today, it's April 2020, and I still make my bed every single day. But I had to commit to myself that I was going to do it. I had to make sure it was something that was completely achievable and then move. And since then, I've added other things into my life that I commit to do, and it's one thing at a time, and it's take the step, build trust with yourself, and then you can move and do more.
Yeah.
But it's that declaration is where it starts, and not just lying to yourself about what you're going to do, but actually doing it. And don't be afraid to declare it.
For sure. So I think talking this much about declaration, which neither of us had an idea that we were going to go this deep into.
Yeah, it just kind of did, right?
When we first started talking about it. But I think next time we'll need to talk more about taking the first step.
About moving a little bit more.
And not stopping. But I want to at least introduce this topic.
I completely agree.
At this point. And so, again, now you've built trust in yourself that you know you're going to do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah, you've built the trust, and you've declared to yourself and other people that you're going to move.
Right.
That you're going to take a step towards your big dream.
So what is step one at that point? How do you determine step one?
I think that's the hardest part for people, because here's the funny thing is that so many people, they're like, they know they want to do something with music. They know that they want to have a career, and so they just start moving.
Right.
Right? They just start doing things. They're like, I'm going to take lessons, and I'm going to perform, and I'm going to write a song. I should record that song, right? And then, maybe I should throw out an EP. Maybe I should try to, and it's just kind of like this. They're taking a lot of steps, but all those steps are just kind of going nowhere in particular, right? So there's a lot of people out there moving, and it's good to be moving. We always want you to be moving. But the problem is they don't have the destination figured out. So it's this idea of set that destination, and then all of a sudden the path lays itself out there for you. Right? And then it's having the courage to take a step toward it. And the thing is there I don't think there's any one perfect step, right? There's no such thing as this is the exact perfect step to take to get where you want to go, because the truth is that path's going to wind all over the place. You're going to end up getting there, but it's not going to be straight, right? It's not going to be just this clean-cut thing. It's going to wind everywhere. But the idea is you know where you're trying to get. And there's a lot of clarity about it. It's not just, I want to have a career. It's like, this is exactly what I'm going to do with my career. This is exactly the impact I want to have,
Right.
And then you just have to take a step in that direction.
So it's not necessarily about determining what the perfect step number one is. It's just putting one foot out there.
Yep.
And then saying, after I make this step, I'll take the next one.
Yep.
And the next one. So don't get wrapped up in your head like, oh my gosh, I don't know what the next step is. Just take a step.
Right. Well, we say analysis paralysis all the time, right? A lot of the reason why people don't take the first step is because they want it to be perfect, when really all they have to do is just take one. And there's no such thing as perfect, and perfect is a lie. So if you're waiting for everything you do to just be spot on before you put it out there, you're never going to go anywhere. And so it's this idea of, I'm going to declare what I want, because you know what you want now. You know where you're at. And then it's this idea of, what's one step I can take today to get closer to that? And maybe you've recognized that where you're at right now, maybe you don't have all the skills you need to get where you want to go. And so you're looking at it and going, you know what? I got to go take some voice lessons. That's going to be my step today. Or I'm going to practice my guitar because I'm still not getting that finger pattern down. Or I'm going to go out and network with people because I've got to find my ideal band to be able to play the shows I want to play. And it's kind of having these benchmarks along the way of knowing I've got to have a band, I've got to have my voice in shape, I've got to meet a producer, I've got to, you kind of have these big benchmarks of things you have to have together to reach your destination, and then you just take one step towards it. That's all it is.
Yeah. And I think next time I want to get into this conversation about...
Even more, yeah.
Oh, way more. But
way more.
One thing I want to talk about next time is what you think the best step one to take is.
Okay.
And then what I think the best step one to take is.
Okay.
And then what happens when you take steps out of sequence, which we have seen.
Oh, shoot.
The results of that will make you question everything that you're doing, but don't worry, we'll talk.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Because a lot of people are already on their journey and they've already taken a ton of steps out of sequence, and that's why they're not where they want to be.
Right.
So we'll talk about sequencing for sure next time. But yeah, so it's just this idea to recap what we're talking about here. It's this idea of understanding where you're at, where you want to go, declaring it to the universe, to yourself, to everyone around you, and then taking the first step and moving.
And you declare to everyone else. So one, you can get support from those around you who care about you and care about what you're doing.
Yep.
And two, so that way you can build trust in yourself. And that's why you have to take the step after that. Because if you don't start stepping towards it, that's when you start to lose that credibility.
Yep.
So I think that's a perfect place to wrap it up for today.
Yeah, we are super pumped for you guys to take your journey. And hopefully this is starting to help paint a picture for you to get a little more clarity on how to do this, because this is just the outline of how to move, right?
Right. We're just giving some basic structure at first, and then we'll get into more specifics down the road. But
the interesting thing about that, though, is I remember the first time I heard this concept, and I was so blown away because I was like, how have I not thought about this before?
Right, and it was in our 30s.
Yeah, we're in our early 30s when we heard this. We're like, oh, that's how you move? That's how you're successful? Like, that's crazy.
Right. And so for anybody who's thinking right now, like, okay, this seems really basic.
Common sense.
The concept is basic, but actually executing it is a whole nother game.
Whole other game.
And I can say that it's completely changed our lives.
100%.
My life is night and day difference between when I lived life
on accident
versus doing it this way.
And on purpose.
Yep. So until next time, if you know anybody that would really benefit from this podcast, make sure to share it.
Yeah.
Let them know about it. Let them know what your thoughts are about it. Always feel like you can comment, subscribe.
Ask us questions too, because this is a community of artists and we want to make sure that everyone's getting the help they need.
And we will answer some of those questions as we get them.
Yep, we will. Hey, you guys, have a wonderful day, and
until next time.
Peace.
Peace.